Okay, let's get right into it. A geopolitical earthquake is happening right now, and it's shaking the very foundation of North America. In just the last 72 hours, we've seen a brand new aggressive doctrine declared, an entire country is literally being plunged into darkness, and America's closest allies, well, they're being forced to make an impossible choice. So, how on earth did we get here? Let's break it down. 72 hours. Just 3 days. That is all it took for a continental alliance, one that was built up over generations, to start cracking at the seams. This is a story about economic warfare, and it is happening in real time. And right at the center of this whole storm are almost 500,000 American jobs. They're just hanging in the balance, completely caught in the crossfire of this massive geopolitical gamble. And it all comes back to a $1 trillion trade deal. Think about that number, an agreement that supports the entire economic structure of the continent, and it's now been dismissed with a single word: irrelevant. This is the story of that fracture, of how an alliance that has stood for decades is breaking under the weight of this new, aggressive American foreign policy. The continental system that we've all taken for granted, it's coming apart right before our very eyes. So, what was the spark that lit this whole fire? Well, it started with a declaration. A new doctrine that's trying to completely rewrite the rules for the entire Western Hemisphere. It's being called the Monroe Doctrine, and a good way to think about it is like a 21st century reboot of the old Monroe Doctrine from 1823, which basically told European powers to stay out of the Americas. This new version, though, it's a much more blunt assertion of total U.S. economic and political dominance over its neighbors. And it's not being enforced with just words, but with immediate, hard-hitting action. And the very first nation to feel the full weight of this doctrine, an island just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Let's take a look at what's happening right now in Cuba. The speed of this crisis is just staggering. I mean, look at this timeline. It all kicked off with the capture of Venezuelan President Maduro, who was a critical ally for Cuba. Then, on January 11th, the ultimatum comes down: play ball or face the consequences. And the very next day, boom, the hammer falls. 5 oil tankers, Cuba's absolute lifeline, were seized. A modern-day blockade was officially on. We are talking about 35,000 barrels of oil per day. Now, for Cuba, this isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. This is their lifeline. This is the energy that powers their hospitals, that refrigerates their food, and that keeps the lights on for millions of people. Now, this is what's so wild. That oil that was seized, it represents a full 50% of Cuba's entire energy supply. Gone. In one single move, the Monroe Doctrine has cut the nation's power in half. This is what an economic chokehold looks like in its purest form. And the impact on the ground for everyday Cubans has been immediate and, frankly, devastating. The capital, Havana, is seeing rolling blackouts for at least 4 hours every single day. And outside the city, it's even worse. Many places only get power for a couple of hours. This means hospitals can't refrigerate essential medicines. Food is spoiling all over the country. This isn't just a policy dispute. This is a full-blown humanitarian crisis in the making. And the administration's position on this, it leaves zero room for doubt. This quote from the president makes the objective crystal clear. The goal is total economic isolation. And you know what the craziest part is? The actual terms of the deal Cuba is supposed to accept haven't even been stated publicly. It's an ultimatum without any clear way out. So, while Cuba is being plunged into darkness, the shock waves are starting to hit home in a big way. Let's shift gears and look at how this is playing out domestically, because this new doctrine is kicking off what's basically a civil war inside one of America's most important industries. And right here, you see 2 completely opposite ways of looking at the world. On one side, you've got the CEO of Ford, who says the North American auto industry is a single, deeply integrated system. But on the other side, you have the president dismissing CUSMA, that's the big trade deal he himself signed to replace NAFTA, as simply irrelevant. This is the conflict right here. So what does an integrated system actually look like in the real world? Well, let's take the Ford F-150, the best-selling vehicle in America. You could almost call it a North American smoothie. The engine block gets cast up in Canada. Then it's shipped to the US. The wiring harness, that's made down in Mexico. And all those pieces come together for final assembly in Michigan. One truck crosses international borders multiple times before it even gets to a car lot. So, here's the bottom line. What happens when you try to rip that system apart with tariffs?
Well, according to industry analysts, new U.S. tariffs alone could wipe out 177,000 American jobs. But, and this is the really crucial part, if Canada and Mexico retaliate with their own tariffs, which you have to assume they will, that number more than doubles to 400,000. It's a trade war where American workers are stuck right on the front lines.
Now, this pressure campaign isn't just causing economic chaos. It's actually pushing America's oldest, most reliable ally to start looking for new friends in some very different places. And it's led to this totally unprecedented diplomatic pivot toward America's biggest global rival. And this chart, wow, this really shows you why Canada is in such a tough spot. A massive 75% of everything Canada exports goes to just one country, the United States. That kind of economic dependency gives Washington an incredible amount of leverage, and it leaves Canada with almost no good options when that relationship suddenly goes sour. So, facing this reality, what happens? The Canadian Prime Minister gets on a plane and flies to Beijing. And what's on the table? Well, Canada is dangling a huge prize, dropping its steep tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. And in return, China offers to open its gigantic market to Canadian oil, canola, and pork, the exact things that are now at risk in the U.S. market. This isn't just some trade deal. This is a strategic realignment, and it's born out of pure desperation. So what's the big takeaway from all this? The events of just these last 72 hours have done more than just mess with trade routes. They have created a new and deeply unstable geopolitical fault line, and it runs right through the heart of North America. And here is the ultimate irony of the Donroe Doctrine. A policy that was designed to assert American strength and put America first seems to be having the exact opposite effect. It's actively pushing its closest, most integrated allies like Canada straight into the strategic arms of its main global competitor, China. The entire continent is being rewired as we speak. And all of this leaves us with a really fundamental question. From the people sitting in the dark in Havana to the factory workers in Michigan worrying about their jobs, the real consequences of these high-stakes decisions are felt most by ordinary people. And it forces us all to ask, when you're pursuing these big geopolitical goals, does this kind of economic pressure ever really work when it's the citizens, not the leaders, who end up paying the price?